This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one-of-its-kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sphurti, shakti and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
दोस्तों नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल, वड़क्कम, वेलकम. आप सभी का भारत एफएम के इस कार्यक्रम में जिसका के नाम है रूबरू में तहे दिल से स्वागत है. मैं हूं आपका दोस्त और आपका होस्ट आशीष झा और आज आप जिनसे रूबरू हो रहे हैं उनका नाम है विजया पाटिल. A little bit about Vijaya before we bring her in. Vijaya is a blessed mother of four little ones, software professional with a healthcare focus, taught computer science at universities in India and USA, hails from a yoga family, yoga consultant and double certified yoga teacher, lived in different countries, embraces world culture while being proud of her roots, passionate supporter of important social causes and organizations, enjoys literature and the arts, and her life's mantra is be positive and grateful. Do good with no expectations in return. Every day matters and every small action counts. Focus on what has true value in life. So with that, we would like to welcome Vijaya Patil. Welcome, Vijaya. You are on mute.
Namaste, everybody. Namaste, Ashish. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you, Vijaya?
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
We are honored and obliged to have you on our show, Rubaru. So let's go ahead and get started, Vijaya. As you know, the format of our show, we start your life journey right from your birth. So tell us a little bit about where were you born and what kind of childhood you have had. If there is anything that you remember from your childhood that you would like to share, please feel free to do that.
Yeah, sure, Ashish. It just feels like I have come such a long way and childhood was so far away in the, past, but it is such a pleasure to think about it now and just get those memories back. So again, let me first begin by saying, Ashish, yourself and all the team members at Bharat FM, you are all doing such a phenomenal job. So I personally feel honored to be with you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So childhood, well, I grew up, I was born and grew up in Karnataka. A place called Dharwad is my hometown. And I actually was born in the twin city of Hubli or Hubballi. And so just give me 1 second. My daughter just barged in and here is her, the youngest of the four little ones. I will send her back. Just a second, please.
Yeah, I will not say that I'm surprised with four little ones. I was kind of expecting this to happen.
So that was a first-hand experience, right, of my life. Yeah, so I forgot to lock the door, so she barged in. Okay. So going back, so I grew up in Karnataka. The place I was born in is Hubballi or Hubli, and the place where I grew up is Dharwad, our hometown, and I'm very proud of Dharwad. It has such a great cultural history and heritage there. I'm not sure. Have you heard of Dharwad, Ashish?
Oh, I have friends from Dharwad. So definitely I know Dharwad really well. In fact, you are Vijaya Patil and I have a friend called Vijay Patil who is from Dharwad.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting.
He lives in Boston because that was my next question. Like usually, this is my knowledge and I might be wrong, but usually people from Dharwad, like in your case, Vijaya Patil. Patil is mostly a Maharashtrian last name, but then some Patils lives in Dharwad too. So tell us a little bit about that story, how that works.
Yes, yes, sure. Yeah. So, yeah, we will be all over the place, I think, but we will talk about all the interesting things from my life.
Yeah.
So, Patil is my married last name. Uh,
Oh,
but it is also my maternal grandpa's name, so last name. So my mom had Patil before she got married too, and
oh,
yeah, my maiden name is Sannilapanavar, and for short I make it as S Navar, as you see on my screen. Sannilapanavar is a mouthful. I love it. I like to say it, but it's just harder for practical purposes for others to say it. So
right.
I'm trying to be more reasonable that way. So I thought, okay, let me shorten it. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, had suggested this when I was very little to our family. Why don't you do that? S Navar. And somehow it just fell through the cracks. It never happened. But then now I was like, I miss him so much. I thought, okay, I should just keep it that way. It's kind of a memory for me too.
Right.
So that is where. And then Patil, as you said, correct, right. There are many Patil families in Karnataka too. As you know, in India, many of the last names come from the occupation, right?
Yeah. Right.
So a lot of our ancestors were landlords, and so Patil comes from there, basically. And so that's why both my maternal side has Patil and my husband's side has Patil too.
I see. Okay. Okay. So do they speak Marathi or do they speak Kannada?
We all speak Kannada, but however, Dharwad being closer to Belgaum and Maharashtra border, there are many people who also they are bilingual basically.
Right.
Like my mother likes to speak in Marathi. She knows Marathi well. Yes. And so any of my friends, if they are Marathi, she just starts with Marathi, So, yeah, we are very proud of our Kannada heritage, but at the same time, we embrace all the other cultures that are around us. So,
Right.
yeah.
So you were talking about your childhood days. So did you do all your schooling in Dharwad or were you moving around during your school days?
Yeah, so we, for the most part, Dharwad, Ashish, right from my kindergarten days, all the way till my college, it's been Dharwad. However, a very interesting phase of my childhood and growing up days were about 3 to 4 years when we got to spend and live in Russia. And that was actually back in 89. So 89 to 92, those 3 or 4 years, and that's a very interesting story. I'll come back to that. But just to quickly mention, that was still former Soviet Union. It was Soviet Union at that time.
Right. Yeah.
So we went to USSR and we came back from Russia when Soviet Union got disintegrated.
Oh,
so it was a very interesting part of history when we were there. So
yeah, we'll come back to that.
Correct,
we will definitely need to hear more stories on that for sure. Yeah. So now coming back to your Dharwad days, tell us a little bit about what kind of kid you were, basically. What kind of dreams you had as a kid.
Right. Yes. So I should just say I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth in the sense of not really that, we had a lavish childhood or we were like having so much of wealth and all that. But in terms of the love and affection that I got at home, I was pampered so much. And I got love and affection not just from my parents, but my grandparents and my parents' friends. And we just always had a big circle, very big circle. And I was the youngest of the 3 kids at home. So it was like, it was a given that I won't do any work. I just have fun, I was a carefree spirit. And again, I took advantage of all the pampering that was happening. So I now that I'm grown up, I feel like, oh my God, karma is coming back to me when my kids are troubling me.
You just saw that when we started, right?
Yes, they are so naughty, and that many times that reminds me of the stories that my parents have about me, So it was a very loving, very an amazing childhood. And whenever I think about it, I just feel so happy, that joy, I can feel it in my heart. So an amazing childhood, definitely, yeah.
So let's get to your school days. What was your favorite subject growing up, and why?
Oh my God, yes. So when it comes to studies, honestly, I never gave studies too much importance. As you probably heard from other friends too, who are more like in creative sector, right? So they're more creative. And I knew studies was important, so I did not slack. But at the same time, I was not the kind of child who would sit every day to study. I would only study maybe just, I would have a plan in my mind. I would study just a few days before the exams and still manage to get good grades.
Wow.
So and then again, that is not, that credit doesn't just go to me. I've got some really good genes. I will tell you more about it. So
Okay.
I can't take all the credit. But again, yeah, so studies, I loved studying, I loved reading. I was a very curious child and very, very much interested in learning more than, getting prepared for exams. I was more into learning. So anything that was interesting, any topic in any subject, doesn't matter. I would spend hours together on those topics, rather than try and find, hey, which is going to be more important for exams, I have to focus on that. No, never. I just followed my heart. In everything I followed my heart. So yeah, so that was the kind of child I was. And so when it comes to subjects, I enjoyed subjects like math and science, but I was more inclined towards languages, and yeah, and also history, geography, so like social studies. That used to be one of my favorites. Yeah, so
You are one of the very few people who says that they, I mean, nothing against history and geography, but there
I
are
enjoyed it.
people who enjoy history and
Yeah,
geography.
I really did enjoy it. I mean, it was funny. I even remember my teachers' names and specific topics in those subjects that I used to enjoy. Like in geography, I loved learning about all the different types of land and where in the world they were and the countries and all that. So maybe the slight interest of traveling started early.
I
And also history, I was so much into learning about, oh, what a amazing history this world has, like so many different kinds of people, so many different kinds of like kingdoms and kings and royal families in different parts of the world. And again, I used to try and find the similarities and differences. I was a very analytical child, very analytical. So even that's part of my growing up days, where I would spend a lot of time on interesting topics and just analyze them so much. And yeah, and talk to my parents about that too. Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
so happens with a lot of kids. What was your dream growing up? Like, you were good with studies and everything, but there is always a dream that keeps changing again
Oh yeah,
when you're of that age. So, do you have something like that when you were growing up?
yeah, definitely. I mean, as most of the kids growing up in India, when I was around first grade or so, I wanted to be the Prime Minister of India. Most of the kids, right? That is one position which we know is like a leadership position, and it's most respected in our country.
Right, right.
So I may not have shared many of these even with my family, because they may be like, today when they're listening to me, they were like, oh, okay, she thought about all this. But, but within me, I know this. So yeah, I wanted to be that. And then growing up, when I again, as it comes to my mind, I'll share with you, Ashish. But again, growing up, I started. I was very much into news. I used to read the newspapers from, like, I used to spend a lot of hours reading the newspapers, whether it was English or Kannada. Both of them we used to get at home. And there are many interesting stories around that. But because of that, and also I used to sit with my grandpa whenever he was in town visiting us. He had to watch the news every day. So sitting with him watching the news, and at those days, you might remember, like 80s and 90s, the newsreaders were very elegant and very sincere in their jobs, and they were so poised and not very different from these days. The media portrays like they're all yelling all over there, so just that kind of environment, I liked it so much, so I wanted to be a newsreader at some point. And then also at some point I realized that I love talking to people. So any kind of position where it involved public speaking or communications, that was also something that I had on mind. And towards my high school days, I became a little more practical about what's going to work out, what's not going to work out, right? So because I was so much in love with the languages, various languages, and dictionary was one of my favorite books. Like I used to spend so much time just looking at a word and then looking at all the derivatives and the origins and all that. And I would just spend a lot of time in reading dictionary, Reader's Digest. We used to my parents did a phenomenal job of getting all the best books and exposing us to the best environments and people. So I think that helped me a lot. So because of my love for languages, I just wanted to be a linguist, nothing but a linguist, when I was in high school.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. That it looks like that you were very much fascinated with literature.
Very much fascinated, yeah. And there was no doubt in my mind that I would be anything but a linguist when I was in high school. Yeah. And so,
what happened later, we'll hear that story as well. But sure. Right now, keep it as you wanted to be a linguist, okay?
Yes, of course.
Now, other than studies, what other extracurricular activities or hobbies did you have?
Yeah. So, I was, again, as I mentioned, I was not a child who would just focus on studies. I wanted to just follow my heart. So my heart was in everything other than sitting every day to study. So, so anything that I heard of, any kind of competition, doesn't matter whether I know I'm skilled or not, I wouldn't even evaluate that. I would go sign up. So at one point, in fact, I remember my maternal grandfather, when he visited us, he saw so many certificates and medals lying around. He was a class 1 audit officer for government state of Karnataka. So he was so much into finances. Finances were he breathed in every day, finances. So for him, keeping ledgers was a daily thing, right? So he sat down. He told me, no, this is not how you throw the certificates around. So he sat down and he made a list. So just in the past few months for that year of school, I had won like 25 to 30 certificates and medals. So he was like, see, you have so many things, you have to be more organized. So organization was one thing I was not good at. Okay. Just coming back to your question, basically I enjoyed participating in anything and everything, be it sports, be it public speaking, like elocution competition, debates, and be it drawing and painting, and anything that was there. I enjoyed fancy dress competitions, and I took it very seriously. When I did it, I took it very seriously. Like I have some stories for that too, I'll tell you.
Like if I'm getting in, I have to win. That kind of attitude, right?
Well, you know what? The other thing is there. I did not care about winning, Ashish, but I always visualized myself as a winner. I always visualize myself as a winner. So I put my heart into it. Whatever
you're putting best into whatever you're doing.
Yeah, but then if I did not win for some reason, I wouldn't care about it. So that was my attitude. I would be like, that's okay, and there's another thing. Anyway, I had to participate in so many things. So there's always other medals for me. So that kind of an attitude.
Now that you were doing all these different extracurricular activities, did anything jump out of that where you felt that, this is something that I might think about making it as a career?
Right. No, well, nothing specific that I wanted to follow up as a career, for sure. Not the extracurricular activities, but all the skills that I gained from those. It just helped me so much in my career. But I do want to mention that in my 9th grade, I joined a new school. And some of my friends are probably online watching me today. And so 9th grade, I started hockey. And in the same grade, because again, as I put my passion, my heart into anything, that was the first time I even started learning about hockey. But then apparently I gained good skills at that, and I was good at it. So in my school, they had to select people to go to the next level, right? So they selected me for the district level, and then I went to the regionals, and then I was studying in Kendriya Vidyalaya. So the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sanghatan, right? It's a national organization, and so I was even selected for nationals hockey just
Wow.
in 1 year. So
Very nice.
a few months. So that's how I was. So not that I wanted to make it a career ever, but I just followed my heart, doing the best I could in everything. And so I have such fond memories of going to NDA, Khadakwasla, National Defense Academy, for the nationals for hockey for our schools, and we had a blast, all of our friends staying away from home a whole month. We did all nighters with Antakshari, and we had fun. So
Nice. That's nice. That's nice.
such things, yeah, such memories I have, but never wanted to really make it a career. I knew that, yeah, linguist was what I was going to be, and that's it.
So now let's move on to your Russia journey. What grade you were in when you moved to Russia, and why did you have to move to Russia? What was the reason?
Yes, this is a great segue to here I would like to give you a little bit about my father, give you some information, because that is where, again, when I said who I am today, what I am today, the credit goes to many people. It's not just me, and I couldn't be me without any of them. So as Maya Angelou said, I come as one but stand as 10,000, right? So all of them, my genes, the influence, and all that, it helped me be who I am. So just to talk specifically about my father right now, and I can always talk about the others a little later. So he came from very humble beginnings, but he has an extraordinary life of hardships, the challenges that he faced, and then all the victories that he gained through perseverance. And one such story is where so to give one more interesting fact about him is he has spent his whole life in the field of yoga. That is where my yoga connection comes from. So he was very good in math growing up, but he just got into yoga when he was in elementary school. I think he was probably 12 or 13 years of age when his teacher introduced him. And since then, something got into him that he just wanted to pursue yoga. So although he was in a village background at that time, he just decided somehow I have to make it happen in yoga. So that is why even at that young age, he got that awareness, and he started going from one village to another village by foot even, because their transportation was not so great at that time. And because of his passion, he kept going on and on and on. And although our ancestors from my father's side, they were well to do, they had good property and all that, but unfortunately they have a sad story where they had to forego everything because of some deception that happened. Such things happen, many families we hear that. So they were growing up in a small village called Kuppellur, and then they had to move the whole family. They had to relocate from that village to another village called Yerekuppi, which was my dad's maternal family. So the three boys and the parents, they all moved there, and then they again had to restart their life because of all this. So at that point, I think, since they didn't have that good property, and my dad even remembers sometimes he used to wear like these heavy gold earrings as a baby. How they put it in India, and very heavy that his ear, the hole we can still see it is gone down. So that so rich at that time. But once they moved, unfortunately, they had lost everything. So very humble beginning at that time, once again, beginning for the second time. And there his hardships had started. So he went to Urdu school in the beginning. And then after that, this other school where his teacher introduced him to yoga. So then he started going by foot, and sometimes he wouldn't even have proper footwear. So there was thorns pricking him. I've heard so many stories of all that. But there was no medical facility around. He still had to keep going because of this passion that was driving him. So he knew that yoga could do wonders to the world. So he wanted people to be more aware. And this was back in the 40s, Ashish. 1940s, even before independence, right? Around that time, he was a young boy and he started then. And so his journey took him from that small kind of setting all the way to different cities and to New Delhi and to abroad. And that is the kind of journey he's gone through. And I mean, there are so many stories to tell about him. Even there are some incidents that he's expressed in just family setting. He's never the kind of person who would like to get more attention. So he just shared with us to understand the struggles that he's come from. There were times when he had to go hungry all night long in order to demonstrate yoga, because people would say, okay, your turn is coming next, and then you know how it goes. He had to wait again. So hours together, maybe the whole night also, many times he had to stay hungry just to demonstrate yoga, so people know what yoga is. Because at that time people used to think yoga was like a circus show, or even wizardry. Some people considered it. There was such lack of awareness at that time. Today everybody knows what yoga is,
right?
So he had to go through all that just to make people aware, public awareness of yoga. And then he moved from there to Dharwad, and that is where he got that job. And in fact, seeing his dedication, the vice chancellor of Karnataka University, a very prestigious institute in Karnataka, he created that position for him. He said, we want such a sincere, hardworking person in our organization. So here you go. We are going to create this yoga coach position for you, and you start off here, So then he went ahead and he convinced the UGC, the University Grant Commission, to start a department of yoga. So that was one of the first in the world. Yes, not just India, in the world. One of the first in the world. And that was back in, I'm thinking 70s. By that time, he had a long journey. He had to finish college, all that. And in 70s, he established it. And since then, he's taken the department from nothing to, many degrees there. So during this 25 to 30 years of his service in the university, there was one opportunity where an interview was being called at New Delhi. So so that is where at that time the government of India had decided, because there was the very close ties between USSR and India, if you remember, during Indira Gandhi's right, you must have heard all that. So we probably were not born, or very very young at that time when all those were happening. But this was in 80s again, when coming back to 80s, and they called for an interview where they wanted to have the best person in yoga selected from India to be deputed by the government of India to the Embassy of India in Moscow. So that was very, very that was a position that was eyed by that. It had to be the best person, no compromise. And in Indian circumstances, there is many situations. Unfortunately, the selections happen based on undesirable ways. But here, it was so strict that there was no chance of bribery or influence or whatever. And that is probably the only reason how my father got through. Otherwise, with all his hardships, the stories we've heard, he's barely got any support from anybody. In fact, there were people who used to push him back, seeing his dedication and passion to go forward, that, they would not be able to succeed him or whatever. Go past. So they would push him back. So this was the time, since it was really an earnest effort by government of India. There were like about 50 people interviewed at New Delhi from all around India. And he was the one who was selected finally. So he was deputed as the first yoga teacher from government of India. So I feel very proud when I say that. To Jawaharlal Nehru Cultural Center, which was just established in 89. All the history is there on the internet for Jawaharlal Nehru Cultural Center at the Embassy of India, Moscow. So he was selected, and he went to New Delhi for that. And within a fortnight, he had to leave. He had to go to Moscow and start teaching yoga. So we were still back in Dharwad when all this happened. So he went through a very rigorous selection process. He got selected, and the officials were so impressed. They shook his hand personally, the top government officials, and they said, "No, you better leave soon. Don't delay. Just leave in a fortnight." So he left for Moscow from New Delhi.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All the arrangements are to be made, and then of course, the government was so kind. They said you can bring your family in, not a problem. So that is how my story of and connection to Moscow comes. And so then my mother stepped up. She did whatever needed to be done back home, and my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, helped out and to get all the arrangements done. And so my dad was in Moscow, and then we followed. So he probably went in Feb or March of that year, and then we followed in August. So yeah.
So, what grade were you in when you moved there?
I was in 6th, so I did my middle school in Moscow, and a part of my high school. Yep.
Okay. So, how difficult or easy was it to move from one country to another country altogether, where everything changes, the culture, tradition, the food habits, everything changes?
That's a great story. But if you don't mind, maybe this is a good time to see if my parents are on the line, and maybe they can say hello.
Yeah.
And then we can continue, because in India it is quite late.
Yeah, they just need to be unmuted.
You're on mute. So it needs to be unmuted. So now my father is 85, going on 86. He's still teaching yoga.
Wow. I mean, like somebody like him who is so self-disciplined and so hardworking. I'm not even surprised that, and touch wood, fit and healthy. I would not be surprised at all. So, Uncle, if you can hear me, what a wonderful story! What an inspiring story! Thanks to Vijaya for sharing that with not just with us, but with all our viewers and our listeners all around. So, thank you very much. I'm just speechless to hear the story from Vijaya. If you like to just say a few words about Vijaya, please go ahead.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Ashish. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's okay. So you know what? I have already warned them with technical issues. Please don't worry about it. I will tell my story. So, but because it is late night, if you don't mind, I just thought they can come in and say hello to all of us. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Uncle and Auntie.
The girl behind them is their granddaughter in India. Her name is Nakshatra. That's my sister.
Elder sister, your elder sister?
Yeah, that's my elder sister. And her son is hiding.
Thank you, Ashish, for this.
Hello. Thank you very much for.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming over here and just sharing a little bit with all our audience. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much for arranging this.
Bye. Have a nice night.
Yeah. That was so sweet of them. That was very nice.
They're always there to support me, no matter what, whether I'm doing the right thing, wrong thing. If I'm doing the wrong thing, they know the way to convince me, because I'm a very headstrong person from the beginning, from my childhood. And again, there are some stories I can tell you later. but yeah, they've always been there. So I thought, this is a great opportunity to come.
That was really wonderful. That was very nice. Very, very touching, I would say. Yeah. So now coming back to your journey, tell us a little bit about how was your experience moving to a completely different country with everything changing?
Oh, yeah.
So how was that experience?
Yeah. So that experience, it changed me. It changed me for sure, because coming from a town like Dharwad, again, let me take a quick minute to explain how the environment I was in Dharwad. So my parents, as you saw them, so both of them worked in the university, and both of them were university professors, now retired. And so our house was the very first house right outside the university campus. Oh. So anybody who's going to the university, coming back from university, they had to go in front of our house, that particular path. And since my parents were both working in the university and I was the youngest, there were some hours difference in school hours for my older sister, my older brother, and me. And so I was free most of the time. I probably had half days, and also I spent a lot of time in the university campus, a lot of time. So I practically grew up in the university. So I was surrounded by intellectual people, academic oriented people, and my parents themselves were that way, very engrossed in work. We barely saw them not working, but at the same time they did such a great job in raising a family of 3 kids, and we never felt deprived of their attention. So I don't know how they did it, because now I'm struggling with my children, but they managed to succeed in their career as well as look after us. So that was a kind of environment. And you know, the area where I grew up, again, right outside the university, so many of the houses, people, the people who lived were people who were working in the university. Like, you know, there were professors from English department, Kannada department, history, geography, different departments. They were all there in that area. So even our conversations and the interactions used to happen with people who were in that circle. That's why sometimes my husband teases me, you are in university, that's a different place of Dharwad. It's not even the real Dharwad, you know. So because he grew up in the city part of Dharwad, I grew up in the university part of Dharwad, right? So I was surrounded in that. So my somehow I was a very keen observer, and I used to learn by visual visual and interactions and reading. As I said, reading was my favorite hobby. So such was an environment. And also, again, as much as my parents embraced diversity, like my father's closest friends were like from all faiths, Muslims, and they sent us to Christian schools. So we were in convent schools, and my kindergarten was in a missionary school, Shanti Southern, very close to home. And they were all amazing, teaching their own values. And my father's another close friend was Sikh, and Muslims and Sikhs and Christians. So different faiths, we all grew up together and we embraced them. But still, it was still that environment was Dharwad, India, right? So when we went to Moscow, it was a global platform. So it was definitely a very big change. And in fact, when I was leaving my old school in India, I had just started 6th. We didn't even have Hindi at that point. I believe they had just started to teach alphabets. Up until then, they emphasized on English. Being convent school, they emphasized we had to speak in English, and most of the subjects were in English. I believe, I can't even remember having learned Kannada in school. Never. Yeah. So English was my primary language. I can't remember having learned.
At home. I was only at home, like you were reading, writing, everything at home.
Yeah, only at home, and that's where I somehow managed to learn writing, reading, everything. But yeah, that is the beauty of Indian homes, I think. Doesn't matter which school we go, at least at home our parents emphasize we speak and we follow our Indian culture and language and all that, right? So that is where everything that I know about Kannada came from my home, my family, my parents. And in school it was English primarily, and I didn't know Hindi. That is the part where it gets interesting. So when I went to Russia, the only school where Indian kids could go was the central school. And at that point, 89, there were, I believe, only 3 KVs or 3 central schools outside of India. And Moscow was one of them, being the hub, one of the hubs. I think major, many diplomats were there. So we were at the embassy. My dad was working at the embassy. So at those 3 or 4 years, we were considered as diplomats. And so we as children, all 3 of us, my brother, my sister, and myself, were enrolled at Kendriya Vidyalaya, Moscow. And I have such fond memories there too. And so there, I was exposed, of course, to friends from North India, not just from, because it was all Karnataka until then. Yeah, throughout India, North India, West, East, everywhere, throughout India. and also Russians. There were some Russian students who used to come and study at our school. And also we had these cultural exchange events and performances and all that, where we used to go to, where we basically interacted with a lot with Russians. So that is where my exposure to outside world, outside of our own culture, came into place. And 6th grade, when I went there, Ashish, was when I was suddenly introduced to Hindi texts and Hindi poetry. So I didn't even know alphabets until then, other than there may be something similar to Kannada, but no, nothing about Hindi. And again, me being me, like, so interested in languages, I picked up Hindi so quickly, and my mother helped me a lot, at home. So her background is Kannada language and literature. So she's a professor of that. And so she was into languages. So my love of language probably comes from there, and have those genes. But then at home, she made an extra effort to help me learn Hindi. Right. I don't know how she got it, but she learned and she taught me. And so directly I went to these poetries from Harivansh Rai Bachchan and Kabir Doha and, all those. And I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them so much. So that was a very big change for me in terms of school, in terms of environment. But again, it was like children are so resilient, right? When I think about my own journey, our own journey from the past, I feel amazed about the challenges that I took so lightly, and I was able to overcome them and come here. So,
What did you like the best about your stay in Russia? What is something that you will never ever forget? Like, are you still in touch with a couple of your friends in those videos that you made? Okay.
Yes. I made some of my best friends of my life in Russia. So that is one thing I can never forget. The friends, the times that we spent with friends. And there are many other memories which all tie when I think about my favorite memories. Like the times when my father, with his dedication again and his service, the amount of love and affection he gathered from Russians, I can never forget. Because there are so many misnomers about how Russians are, but I felt it was like a motherland for me. I, in fact, even wrote an article when I was in college. Later when I came back to India, I wrote an article saying Soviet Union, my second motherland, because it was so much love we got from Russians. And first of all, they were so fond of Indian culture, and they were so fascinated with Raj Kapoor movies and all that. Yeah, it was that era when we went there. So every now and then a Raj Kapoor movie would be played in theaters there. So Russians were very fascinated with Indian culture, and they were so eager to learn more. And my mother being very outgoing, my father being so much into spreading, the message of yoga, they gathered a lot of people just followed them. Basically, in the class, that was probably the first time ever happened that Embassy of India, there were so many people in the wait list for yoga classes. He had just started, and people were they went gaga over yoga. There was actually a article that got printed in I think national newspaper in India at that time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there were so many people. The reason I'm telling all this is we used to have like hundreds of bouquets coming to our house. Hundreds of bouquets coming on a daily basis. I don't know how my dad even got there, but he knew that children would love flowers. And my mother would run out of all vases, of course, at home. So we would have to keep them in like vessels and containers and buckets. So, imagine the amount of love he got. So much admiration he gathered from his students. They just admired him so much. Even at the end of those 4 years, they didn't want him to go back to India. They wanted him to stay. So that part I can never forget, about how people showed so much love and affection to our family. And this all was possible only because of his dedication.
That's true.
I bet that since then, any of the yoga teachers may not have got the same kind of respect and the same kind of, because he's that kind of person. Anybody who has interacted with him or learned yoga from him will tell how humble he is. and how much dedication he teaches with. So whether it's one person or 100 people, he'll do the same. So I think that part is one thing I'll not forget. And then again, there are many other childhood memories from Russia. Maybe we can talk sometime. Yeah.
Right. No, I was going to ask you, like, I will not be surprised that because of your love for languages, I'm pretty sure you can read, write, and understand Russian.
Russian, yes. So when we went to Moscow, another interesting story is, besides Hindi, there was Sanskrit, but since Sanskrit, not many people would know there, right? Instead of Sanskrit, they had introduced Russian there. So those 3 or 4 years, we all had to learn Russian. It was mandatory for us.
Okay.
And so we had to put in extra efforts. But all of us, including my mother, father, my father, in fact, started teaching yoga in Russian. He became such an expert with interacting with the students. So yeah, we all learned Russian and we used to speak well. And in fact, I got 100 in Russian, in the exam. And my father had to come back to school to ask my teacher, did she do something? Why are you giving my daughter 100 in language? Nobody gets 100 in language. And then she had to question me in front of him, and I had to talk in Russian just to prove that yes, I was good at Russian.
Okay. So tell me one thing, is that where the Utsahi Yoga Foundation started, or was that before that?
Right. So that's a great question. So Utsahi Yoga Foundation is my father's efforts for the community. So besides working in the university, he always had, because of his passion, he always put extra efforts to go beyond what his job entailed, beyond what he had to do at the university. So he constantly taught free community classes. Free of charge. He never charged a penny. And so he basically taught classes everywhere in every sector. So like right from like school and elementary school all the way to the university level, even in different, not just where he was working. So he did that in the community and outside of just our Karnataka University, Dharwad. So during this time is when he had started Utsahi. So initially it started off as a monthly magazine. So he wanted to start, just do more to spread the awareness of yoga. So back in I believe it was 60s or 70s, he started Utsahi as a monthly publication. He was the editor, he was the publisher, he was a one-man show. And in fact, he has stories where he had to, after printing, he took all the magazines himself overnight to another place to distribute them, right? I mean, when you are so passionate and when you're starting up something, right, a new journey. So he did all this for his monthly magazine, Utsahi, and he wrote about yoga, and he invited other authors to write about Indian culture and other aspects. So it was a yoga cum cultural magazine, and that name Utsahi. So the whole story behind that is, anything we do in life, Ashish, we need to have that utsaha in us, that enthusiasm in us, right? That is where it begins, I think. That is where everything begins. And that is how you will succeed in life. So he somehow got to that and he said, okay, this is what I'm going to name Utsahi. And so he knew with his own experience that you can gain that enthusiasm through the practice of yoga. When your mind is one with your mission, with your vision, you will start getting that automatically. People will only understand this through experience. So no matter how much I explain, until you actually get into the groove, start practicing yoga, understand the basics, fundamentals, you will not be able to believe what I'm saying. But that utsaha comes from the practice of yoga, and it's been proven. So that Utsahi name comes there. And since then, with the magazine, he also started a foundation, and he used to call it Utsahi Yoga Mandir before that. Because it was a very, very devoted kind of service that he was doing for the community. And he did it like pretty much every day. So we barely saw him at home. He was always outside teaching. So that's where Utsahi Yoga Foundation started. And so it was more than 50 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right. So after 4 years in Russia, well, Bitan is asking if you can say few words in Russian.
Of course, Privyet Bitan, that is hello or hi. Hi, Bitan. Kak dela would be how are you?
Okay. Like maybe we'll have a separate session in our RJ group where you can talk in Russian and teach us a little bit of Russian as well.
It'll be Absolutely my pleasure. Yeah.
So you come back from Russia, you are back in India. You are still in your 11th grade, I believe, right? When you come back.
No. I was in ninth. So I finished sixth, I finished seventh and eighth there, and then just had started ninth. So almost, yeah. So just had started ninth. So in the middle of ninth, I came back to India. Yeah.
Okay. So was your school up to 10th grade or 12th grade?
It was till 10th. Yeah.
10th grade. So you went to junior college after that.
Correct.
And
Correct.
usually you have to pick between science, commerce, and arts. That's the standard, right?
Yes.
So that is where my next question comes, is like, you have been so much fascinated with literature, linguist, and everything. How difficult was it for you to make that choice at that point of your journey?
Yes. So, high school, yeah, till 10th. And then after that was a big question mark. And I had the sense of thinking, okay, I'm not mature enough to make my decision. So although I loved languages, I thought here is the logic behind why I did choose science. And the logic behind it was, if I do my 11th and 12th in science, that was called pre-university college then, I still had a chance to pick whether I want to go to arts or science after my 12th, right? The options were more. However, if I picked only, arts at that point, then it would be, yeah. But again, saying that, in the pre-university college, there were a combination of subjects. So I don't believe we could only select arts and go only to the arts stream at that point. I believe we still had to do just like 11th and 12th, because at the end of that 12th, we still had to, again, if we wanted to, we could enter for the common entrance exams for engineering and medicine and all that, right? So I don't think we had a clear choice as to we can just take arts. But what I did, of course, was I was very much inclined into languages. So I ended up taking French when I was so I had to do something, which gave me happiness. So yeah. Because I'm not speaking on a day-to-day basis, I've forgotten so much, but I would love to get back to it someday. But yeah, I did it for 2 years.
So before you move on, how many languages do you speak?
Oh my God, I should count in front of Not too many. Kannada, English, Hindi, of course, and then Russian and French. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Fine.
That's
Yeah.
very
But
good.
Russian and French will need a lot of polishing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's completely fine. So you picked science, and after your 12th grade, you have to do your graduation, right? Which I'm assuming you did at the university itself.
Well, yeah. So after the 12th grade, which was the pre-university college, that got done. And then I had to select whether I want to do my arts or engineering or whatever. So at that point, again, I still had it in my mind that I want to be a linguist. So I ended up signing up for Bachelor of Arts, BA, with concentration on languages. So my major was English. So there were, I think, total of 5 courses that we had to pick. 3 of them were English language and literature, and 2 of them were French, I believe. So that is what I had picked. So all 5 languages. That's it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, at that point. And yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, so you actually did your graduation in literature.
No, I did not. No. I was just about to say where things changed. So I started that, Ashish, and what happened was that was also a good thing that I started it, because then I realized what was lacking. So I took up classes. I was very serious about it for a couple months or few months. I did it. And during the same time, again, the same logic of, what am I going to lose if I take entrance exams, right? So I still went ahead and attended entrance exams for engineering and medicine. And the person I was, that I would not sit and study for exams, right? I would just did it for the sake of it. But still, I was interested. So I didn't get bad grades. At the same time, I got good enough score to get admission at a very prestigious engineering college in our Dharwad, which is SDM Engineering College. I was very happy that I got engineering admission. But I wasn't that happy that I will leave my main focus and go there. However, by the time the 2 or 3 months passed in my BA, I realized that my brain needed more triggering more, you know, I was not the kind of person who would just sit and read literature and language all the time. There was something more stimulation that my brain needed in terms of science and math.
Right.
And that is when I was like, okay, I know I love this, but I will continue doing this. But I think I should follow in the footsteps of my brother and sister. Both of them were doing engineering at the same college then. And so I was like, okay, let me just go. So I spoke to my parents and my family, and they were like, yes, you can do this. Just go ahead for that. And, you know, again, a lot of backing and support from them. But yeah, I ended up doing my engineering in computer science.
Anything that you remember from your college days that you would like to share? How was your college days?
College days, I enjoyed computer science. I enjoyed programming, logic. In fact, I used to sit with my friends to explain some things to them sometimes, you know, like juniors and all if they had trouble. So my another love for me was teaching. It must have come from my parents. So I enjoy teaching. And again, as I mentioned before, you know, extracurricular activities was something that was very, very dear to me. So any kind of events that were happening in the college, I was there front and center. So whether it was technical, you know, technical seminars or something, then I would still look for ways to participate, or more than that, to organize and lead. Those were my two focus. Organizing and leadership those two were very dear to me. So I think during college, especially towards the later, when I was more senior, pretty much every event that I could think of, I have, you know, emceed for it. So I was the master of ceremony for those events. I just enjoyed like anything. I enjoyed organizing, bringing people together, getting ideas, brainstorming, working like crazy for them, besides doing my tests and everything else. And still I was home by the deadline that my parents put. Yeah, because at those days, you know, always parents were like, okay, my mother had told me by 7, you know, in the evening, it'll start getting dark. You have to be home. So I was very obedient in that sense. In the sense of what was accepted and not accepted in the society, I was very mindful. Nobody had to even tell me one thing. That I always followed what was the right thing to do in society. But inside at home, I was like, you know, spoiled brat. I mean, there are so many stories where I was so headstrong. I did my own thing. I got in trouble at home. I did all that. But outside, I was a very good girl. So in college, I had fun with events. That was one thing. And I have some very nice friends from college who luckily, you know, during this unfortunate for the pandemic, but because of the digital era, we have all got back together now. So
that's awesome. Yep. Nice. So you get done with your college, you come to that point in life where now what?
Yeah.
So,
I wish you wouldn't go there, Ashish.
I will, because it's all about you and your journey. So
I know. Well, you did not ask me this question. I don't know whether you ask everybody, but you know, who were my influences, right?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I missed that. I was just so engrossed in your story.
Yeah. My stories are like so big and vast; they'll never end.
Please let us know about that.
So if you don't mind, I mean, I know we are getting close to the hour, but I would like to take just a few moments, a few minutes to tell you about the people who had great influence on me.
Please.
Thank you. So of course, I owe most of what I am, who I am, to my ancestors. So of course, I told you about my father and a little bit about his journey. And now let's go to his father and his father, you know, his father and his grandfather. So very short stories, which will hardly take a few minutes, but the things that I've heard about them. So my father's grandfather, who would be I don't even want to go there, but my father's grandfather, he was a wrestling champion. So, so in that small village, he was so much into physical strength, and he was such a strong gentleman. So he would, there was this, it seems there was, my father loves to tell all these stories and I love to hear. So they were, at one time, there was this wrestling match and they said, okay, whoever is the strongest in the village, you can win this silver mace, that gada, silver mace. And that was something very prestigious. And, not to talk about how much worth it was, right? So, of course, my grandfather went, my dad's grandfather went, beat up everybody, black and blue, and he won it. So that is one thing, one story. And I mean, as children, we used to laugh so much hearing all these stories and feel proud, right, of our ancestry. And then another event where, how there were sugar cane fields in the villages, and they bundle up the sugar canes after the harvest and they keep them ready to be processed. And so there used to be these sugarcane stacks and bundles, which was very close to like a quintal of weight. And there was sugarcane juice or milk, whatever it's called. And people could just go there and drink it up. So somebody challenged my dad's grandfather, if you lift this, because he was so proud of his physical strength. They challenged him, if you lift this one, then you can take this bundle, it is yours. Along with that, you will get free milk or sugarcane juice, how much ever you want, for you, your family, whatever. So he likes taking challenges, so he picked it up. He lifted it. Yeah. So almost a quintal weight. Can you imagine? I was like, yeah. So, and these are all stories that happened really. So physical prowess, that comes from my dad's grandfather. And then my dad's father was also very amazing, where every day, you remember when I mentioned that they had to move from one village to another village and then their hardships began. So he used to go to the field to plow the field himself. And how bullocks are tied in India, like the village scene, right? And that is the plow or till is tied to the bullocks. So nearly 8 to 12 bullocks, and they are so strong. Even one bullock is super strong. 8 to 12 bullocks were tied to one plow, and that plow had to be manned. And it had to be, the full strength had to be put on it, so it can go into the ground or earth, and then all day long you have to plow it. Right. And also make sure the bullocks don't go haywire. They have to be on track, right? They have to be on track. So imagine 8 to 12 bullocks. And so my dad's dad did that every single day from morning till evening. He would do that. And then he would come home and my dad has seen his hands bleeding. So blood all over and then he would just do whatever simple, home remedies and then sleep at night and again be ready in the morning to go. Wow. So that kind of hardworking people, that kind of physical strength, came from my ancestors. Even when I just think about it, Ashish, I just get that energy in me. I'm like, I have that in me, As I said, we come as one, but we stand as 10,000, right? All of them. So that was from my father's side. So great physical prowess that came. And then I have seen my dad going through so much hardship and never giving up. Giving up was the easy option for him, but he never gave up. He kept going on. And I think that came from his side. And now to come to my mother's side, so those stories I just mentioned was from Rani Bennu's side, my father's side, okay? And my uncles, everybody, they still live there. Chachai, Rani Bennu, all the villages and small towns there. And my mother's side was nearer to Belgaum, villages again, where my ancestors came from, landlords there, very well-to-do family. And so a small village called Halgatti, Ramdurg, all those are where my ancestors come from, Kuligod and Yergatti, Sattigeri, all these. I love mentioning them because they are all from there. And so my maternal grandfather, again, I mentioned he was class 1 audit officer. He was the only child for his parents, very wealthy landlord, but still he chose himself to come out of the village, go get educated. He started his law in Pune. And then Dharwad and Pune were like not too far, but still far enough to at those days. And then he came and joined service and he took up and he was all over. He was there. I think every 3 years he was transferred to different places. So my mother was schooling all over Karnataka. And he was a very righteous man, very upright officer. People would fear standing in front of him and speaking because he was so idealistic, very, very principled. And so that kind of moral commitment comes from my mother's side, very righteous. And we used to call him Bhishma Pitamaha, because I have seen him a lot after his retirement. So he used to always wear white, shubra. He followed Gandhian principles, simple living, high thinking, did puja every day, did all the good that he could do without even mentioning his name. After he passed away, people came to our house and told he had given lifelong donation to temples and other organizations. They had to come to pay him respects. So he was that kind of a gentleman. So I think from my mother's side, one, that mental strength comes, and the father said the physical prowess comes.
Right.
So all that together comes to us as kids and grandkids. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to tell about my ancestry, where it comes from, and all these people have influenced me.
I was about to say that is important to know about your personality, how it has been influenced.
Exactly.
Thanks for sharing that with
I cannot take credit. I've got some great genes.
Right. So coming back to the point in life where you had to decide what next.
Yes. So at home, the immediate influences were my parents and my siblings. My sister you met, my brother. At that point, my brother, again, words will be less to talk about him. He is no more physically, but he is with us all the time. So he influenced me to come to USA. So basically, after engineering, I was a very free-spirited person again, just doing what my heart said, and my heart did never ever. I had it in me that I'll be going away from my family, because my family came first for everything. And I was their life. I was their lifeline. The way they pampered me, the way they gave me everything, even if they didn't have. My brother and sister, on their birthdays, they used to use their money to buy me gifts. So that kind of a background I came from. So I never ever dreamt of coming this far from India. So also knowing what kind of a headstrong person I am, my family used to think of ways to help me change my mind without me feeling that I'm being forced. So that was their trick. That's how they tricked me, and I was too naive to understand that then. So my brother, what he did was, he was like, why don't you just give the entrance test and see how it goes. He wanted me to have a good future. He knew my potential, and he said, no, you should go to USA to do higher studies. And I was like, no, bhaiya, I don't want to do that. So he was like, no, why don't you do this? Just come with me, stay with me in Bangalore. By that time, he was already an engineer. He was working at GE. He was having a great career, very good leadership kind of person. Now when I look at like Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai, I always think my brother would be there. That kind of a person. He was doing great, but unfortunately in a car accident, we lost him. Thank you. So he just said, take exams, come live with me in Bangalore. So I spent a good 1 year, some of the best times of my life with him in Bangalore. And during that time, he was like, I was not very serious about taking jobs. So I was not really preparing for job interviews that well. So instead I thought, okay, let me listen to him. Let me just try. I tried, and Ashish, again, I put my heart into what I was doing. And my TOEFL score, the essay was 6 out of 6. And my GRE score, again, the analytical was great. Math, I hadn't studied so much. So, I got okay. So basically, overall, when I applied for admissions, I got 100% teaching assistantship from the University of Akron here. Yeah. And during those times, we had heard of so many seniors who had applied here. Either, they would not get admission, or they were not getting financial assistantship, or they were not getting visas, and so many such stories we heard. So this was like a big win. When
Right.
when that acceptance letter came, and then they had said, no, we'll offer you 100% assistantship. And so that is where I think my mind also, I started changing. I was like, okay, maybe I should give it a try. And
Right.
then again, with my brother's support at that point, my sister was married and she was having her own responsibilities. So I have to owe, for the most part, to my brother that I'm here today in US. And my parents, of course, silent workers, silent supporters, they were behind. Yeah, they were always with that. So that's how I ended up coming to US. And I did my master's here, master's in computer science at the University of Akron.
From Akron. Okay. All right. So your master's happens over here again, changing from
Yeah.
one culture to another culture. Coming to the US, I'm pretty sure it had its own challenges initially when you came here.
Correct.
Tell us in brief about that
Sure.
story.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I won't take too much time, but coming to US, the lifestyle for Americans was not new to me. And the foreigners was not new to me. So besides we living in Russia, a lot of foreigners every year they used to visit Dharwad to learn yoga from my dad. Yes, so from Croatia, Russia, USA, France, different. Every year we used to have foreigners coming to our house. So interacting with foreigners, non-Indians, non-Indians, was not an issue for me, never. But the biggest challenge for me was to live with Indians when I came to US. Yes. I mean, that was something I had not expected, and some of the worst times of my life too, and the most learning experience for me when I came here. Firstly, this time was completely independent, no family support. In the sense, like they sent finances, all that was their support. My brother was checking on me every day. He had his network. Yes, because he was in US before also. He used to travel on work and all that. So he had his friends, he had his colleagues. He used to check, make sure his little sister was very safe and all that. He did that. So I was not worried about that at all. But living every day with friends, new friends, and the new friends who came from different backgrounds, very different from what I grew up in. I grew up in a very protected environment. I remember my mom wrote this sweet note to me when I came to USA for the first time. I'm feeling like a bird is flying away from the nest. I still preserve her notes.
That's very
Yeah. So, and she also told me one more thing. Anytime you have trouble, just think of Lord Ganesha. Just think of God. Especially Lord Ganesha. He's our Vigna Viharaka, right? Like he'll remove all the obstacles. Do your thing. And I had anyway grew up in this environment where facing challenges was not an issue, but these were very different, trying times. So I used to spend long days in the university, especially because I was doing both studying and working as a teaching assistant. So I used to be in the library almost till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night every day. And also that reduced my interactions with my roommates who were from very different environments. Their priorities were different in life. Nothing wrong about it, but it was just hard for me to be with them as a family. So I used to spend, and anyway, I had so much work, right? And the good part of that was I ended up winning a women's award in higher studies from University of Akron, which was a very rare win for women student from India. So yeah.
Right. Now a little bit in very brief, tell us a little bit about your husband, how you met him.
Yes. Yeah. So being the independent woman I was already in US, and then after my master's, I even wanted to go for PhD, but then I decided to go to the corporate world, started working. I was working at GE. I wanted to, after this bad incident happened in our family in 2005, I wanted to be in GE to feel my brother's work. So that phase, we'll have a conversation another time. But that is how I wanted to be there. And with God's grace, and people are so kind in the world. I just try not to think about anybody who's negative. That is where my be positive thought comes from. So kind. I ended up being in GE, and there I was for 3 or 4 years. During that time, so I was independent. I was working. I was on my own, and I had my set thoughts in life. This is what I'm going to do. And marriage was not an easy thought for me. Let me just put it that way. So I was like independent, but my parents, of course, being Indian parents, my mother especially, my father never did
Right.
so much, but my mother was like, listen, beta, you have been doing all this fine, but she was very lenient. She said, okay, I'm going to give you till 30, not the usual 22, 25. She said, I'll give you till 30. You have to be, decide and marry by then.
Yeah.
So my husband, who's Srinivas, he is from Dharwad too, in the sense like, yeah. So his maternal, his mother's side is from Dharwad, and he is from another place, village again, Yadahalli and Bijapur and Jamgi from Bijapur side. And so he's got ancestry there. And he was here studying at Ohio State University. So you know how in India it goes, like families know each other, and his aunt is related to my father, a very distant relative, and so the families knew each other, and they were like, okay, let's hook them up together. At least let's. So my mother kept telling me about him, and I kept avoiding. No, I'm happy, and it was the same with him. Actually, he was not interested. So that's where it gets interesting. Neither of us were interested in marriage, but somehow, because of everybody telling so many times, we both said, let's talk. So he called up, and the first time I was at the temple, I didn't answer. So he left a voicemail, and I heard the voicemail, and I just felt a positive note in it, positive feeling from that. And thereon, I just thought, okay, this is a nice guy. Let me talk. So we started conversing. We started talking, and about 15 days into talking, we had decided we'll marry.
Very nice.
we came from such a background. We were like, no, we don't want to marry, and not now at least. And then we ended up.
You're ready.
15 days, we were like, oh, this is my soulmate, because our principles, our thoughts, where we wanted our life to go, everything matched so well. So it was a match made in heaven. I believe that. So that's how we ended up getting married.
No, it's already 11:15, but I'm very curious to know: did you plan to have 4 kids?
That you are waiting for that, right? You are waiting for that. Okay. So we both of us grew up in a family of 3, Ashish. So 3 was very normal for us, and for me personally, 2 with 2 kids. Even when I thought about it, I felt it was an incomplete family. Some people are happy with 1, some people are happy with 2. So I never thought I will have kids, but if I had kids, it has to be 3. 3 was my number, okay? And when I had my 3 kids, the first 2 were boys, and then my daughter Avni was born. And then as she grew up, I would see her so sad. She was like, the brothers are playing together, that kind of a thing. And then I started thinking, okay, I think it's a good idea, but it's still a chance. You never know if it's the 4th one is boy.
I was about to ask you.
God has been very kind to me. So and we ended up having the 4th baby, and she's a girl. So we have 2 boys and 2 girls.
Wow, wonderful. I mean, I just feel like we are falling short of time. There's a lot that we can hear from you.
So we can have another Rubaru sometime. Don't worry about it.
But before we end, tell us what plans do you have for future? Where do you see yourself in future? Maybe in the next 5 years. I'm sure these 4 kids are keeping you busy right now. So in present day, I can understand that's your priority at this point. But going down the line, where do you see yourself? What do you really love to be?
Yeah. Thanks for this question. Of course, the present right now, until I see my family is okay without me, they are managing without me. Until then, of course, they'll always be my first priority. But until then, I'll be there to hold their hands, especially my children. So, however, I've never been the person who would just do managing house all the time. So that is the reason why you see me everywhere. I am teaching yoga. I am supporting social causes. That's how Ashish came to know about me too. Yeah. I'm trying to involve more into social causes, and also in the next few years, I will continue doing the same. I have my heart set at, helping people, basically. So any platform that allows me to do that, like Bharat FM and, other platforms, other friends who are doing great job, I would like to collaborate with them. And of course, my father's Utsahi Yoga Foundation. It is a labor of love and labor of passion for him. we as children, Girija and myself, my sister that you met, we will continue to take it forward with our children. So there are 6 grandchildren for my parents now. So we will continue to take it to future generations because we know how important yoga is in everybody's life. So we would definitely do that. And she is the manager in our house. She actually won one of the top 100 managers award in India. By Sri Narayan Murthy. So I'm so proud of her. And I am the people's person in the sense I speak to people. So together, I hope we are a good team, and with our own families too, we like to take Utsahi forward as well.
That's an amazing thought. That's an amazing thought, Vijaya. And I just wanted to let our listeners and viewers know that Vijaya has joined Bharat FM already. She is part of the team. And she will be bringing a Kannada segment starting next month. So thank you very much, Vijaya, once again to joining Bharat FM and helping us with the same cause that you just mentioned, where our aim is to get the entire different cultures and traditions of India together on one platform, especially in the US over here, which we always feel that is missing.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Vijaya, once again. With that, I think we will end our show. And thank you once again for coming here and sharing all the beautiful stories about you and your family and your friends with all our listeners and viewers. And to people who might have missed this for various reasons, this recording is going to stay on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel. So anybody can go back and listen to this, can view this. So with that, we come to an end of the show. Thank you very much, Vijaya.
My pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you so much, Ashish. Yeah, and Bharat FM. Thank you.
Yeah.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one-of-its-kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sphurti, shakti and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
FM.